you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Please have a seat.
I believe in a public option.
We'll have a public option.
I'm confident we are going to get health reform passed.
Everybody in, nobody out. That's what single payer is about.
You're going to increase cost.
Physicians are up in arms.
There'll be higher premiums.
The devil is in the details.
Higher taxes.
It's going to be a bigger fight over this issue than most people realize.
That's not health care reform.
I know this bill will pass. It certainly is a bill that can pass.
I'm just getting started.
And welcome to a very special edition of Hannity. Now, tonight we bring you Universal Nightmare 2.0. Now, we received such an overwhelming response to our first healthcare special that tonight we wanted to address some of the questions that remain on the minds of many Americans. Now, after Universal Nightmare initially aired, Americans flocked to town halls all across the country with the message, keep Washington out of the healthcare business. But despite that unprecedented outpouring from their constituents, President Obama and the Democrats are stubbornly pressing forward with their reform plan. And as they do so, well, they've waged a smear campaign against anyone standing in their way. Now let's take a look at how the party that once praised dissent is now working to silence it. They've been called everything from AstroTurf to un-American to evil mongers.
I don't think it's indicative of the nation's mood, and my message to them is they're wrong.
I think they're AstroTurf. You be the judge of carrying swastikas and symbols like that to a town meeting on health care.
Conservatives that are not happy with the direction the healthcare system is headed are now being viciously attacked for having an opinion that stands in opposition to that of this administration.
They called into question the character of a lot of good Americans. And Americans, when they're faced with that kind of challenge, that kind of fight, they're doing what they always do. They're standing up and defending their rights.
But while waging a vicious war against the right, Democrats are silent when it comes to the left-wing's similar grassroots efforts.
It's utter hypocrisy. That's what it is.
Making your voices known and making your opinion clear to your lawmaker is being shut off as somehow illegitimate, as somehow harmful to American democracy. Well, wait a second. One, the left has been doing this for over the Iraq War and all kinds of issues for years and years and years.
Consider this. In September, insurer Humana sent a one-page letter to customers enrolled in its Medicare Advantage plans. Humana noted in the letter that because of the spending cuts proposed by Democrats, quote, millions of seniors and disabled individuals could lose many of the important benefits and services that make Medicare Advantage health plans so valuable. According to the Wall Street Journal, Democratic Senator Max Baucus took it as a declaration of war. He complained to a federal health care agency that the company was out of line. The agency, in turn, ordered Humana to cease and desist from sending its, quote, misleading and confusing mailings. The company is now officially being probed for illegal misconduct.
This gag order, enforced through an agency of the federal government at the request of a senator, is wrong.
But did the censure apply to all companies? Also in September, the insurer eHealthInsurance.com sent emails to customers. The subject line read President Obama's health reform and you, and explained how customers will be affected by the coming changes to the system. So where was Baucus this time? Well, these emails weren't critical of the proposed health care legislation, so we never heard anything about them.
When someone doesn't have any objections to really incendiary and obnoxious language on their own side, their criticism of the other side isn't terribly compelling or plausible.
Another example liberals like to employ is the argument that insurance companies are in the GOP's pocket.
The Republican Party is a wholly owned subsidiary of the insurance industry.
But when you look at the facts, quite the opposite seems to be true.
A lot of the so-called special interest groups, signed on with the Obama administration fairly early on.
The real industry big boys are pouring millions of bucks into Obamacare.
In fact, according to a study by the Center for Responsive Politics on top HMO contributors in the 2008 election, Democrats received nearly 20% more in monetary contributions than Republicans.
Desperate Republicans and their well-funded allies are organizing angry mobs, just like they did during the election.
The Senate Finance Bill is a dream come true for the health insurance industry.
Ads like this, paid for by the DNC or liberal organizations like MoveOn.org, have been making the rounds on TV and the web for months. According to the campaign Media Analysis Group, over $49 million has been spent this year on advertising to support the health care legislation, while only $33 million went to oppose it.
Their efforts to paint conservatives as crazed mobs whose anger is manufactured by the RNC and organized by special interest groups almost seems humorous when you examine, well, who's painting the other side's picture. Groups such as Healthcare for America Now, a national grassroots organization which, according to the Washington Post, is run by a, quote, who's who of liberal organizations, including the unions, the AFL-CIO, and the SEIU, and other players on the left like MoveOn.org. Organizing for America, another group responsible for several pro-healthcare events, is run by the DNC. Its website is BarackObama.com. Tim Phillips is president of Americans for Prosperity. The organization recently spearheaded a 6-week nationwide bus tour.
We have a giant bus. It's emblazoned with Hands Off Our Healthcare on it. We pull up in town squares all over the country and do rallies. The crowds that turn out are amazing.
Now, taking off shortly thereafter was another bus tour sponsored by the DNC's Organizing for America. Its bus read, Health Insurance Reform Now. Let's get it done.
They assumed that it was technological. What we were doing was a tactic, and that's why it was working. Oh, let's do a bus tour, let's hit the road, and they were wrong. It's the message that was driving Americans. It wasn't the bus.
The Washington Post notes that the DNC kickoff rally in Phoenix attracted about 1,200 reform supporters, but a meeting across town hosted by Senator John McCain attracted, quote, hundreds more.
Our crowds wipe their crowds out numbers-wise every time.
People kind of instinctively recognize that there's this contradiction.
Could it be because the left is just upset that they're having to spend more money to replicate the right's exact efforts, but aren't getting the same results? According to a recent Rasmussen poll, only 42% of Americans currently favor the proposal versus the 54% who oppose it.
If you can't take being told that you stink, the bill stinks, I don't want you to vote this way, you really probably don't belong in Congress.
Their message to America is clear. It's okay to gather and rally for a cause. It's okay to spend millions of dollars to push a cause, as long as that cause matches up with ours.
We can disagree without being disagreeable, without questioning each other's motives. When we start caricaturing the other side, I think that's a problem.
Don't caricature the other side and don't question their motives. I guess labeling them as un-American, racist, evil mongers whose anger is manufactured doesn't count.
And coming up, Ainsley Earhardt investigates what doctors really think about health care reform. The answers, they may surprise you. And wait until you hear why one Blue Dog Democrat says he's opposing the health care bill. All that and much more coming up straight ahead. Now, the president has said that he has the full support of physicians for his plan, but our own Ainsley Earhardt investigates how many doctors are saying, wait a minute, not so fast.
President Obama and his Democratic counterparts on Capitol Hill are working to try to pass a comprehensive health care reform bill.
Some of the people who are most supportive of reform are the very medical professionals who know the health care system best, the doctors and nurses of America.
The president has continually said that he has the support of doctors, especially the endorsement of his plan by the American Medical Association, or the AMA. But not all doctors are in support of the president's plan.
We're here in Washington, where Congress is trying to devise a national health care system. Doctors around the country are saying that they're out of line, that health care choices should be made between you and your doctor alone. So many physicians around the country are here in D.C. organizing the Million Med March, and they're hoping to get the attention of lawmakers.
The name Million Med March is a play on the term Million Man March, and although there were only a few hundred physicians at the event, the organizers said it was meant to be a symbolic gathering to represent the million physicians in the United States. Many doctors expressed how they felt.
Physicians are up in arms.
When you layer bureaucrats on top of the doctor who is the executive of the patient health, you're going to increase cost.
The plan that's on the table right now will not only harm health care, it'll destroy the quality of health care that we have in this nation.
I would say outraged is a good word for it.
One specific point that almost all the doctors were against: the support of the president's reform by the AMA.
The AMA signed on to this bill within about a day and a half or 2 days. The Obama administration announced that the doctors are on our side. Only 17% of the physicians in the country are AMA members, so the AMA may have officially been on their side, but for the administration to say the doctors are on our side, that's also not correct.